Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of Launchpad, where we're going to be talking with Claire Robinson from Basic Tech and all about her journey from Google into her new business, which is all about helping people in the seniors community get familiar with tech. All that and more coming right up after this. So, folks, like I said in the introduction, we are here with Claire Robinson from Basic Tech, and she's going to share her story moving from Google onto her new business, Basic Tech. So, Claire, firstly, thanks very much for being here with us.
Thanks for having me, Stuart. I'm really excited to chat to yourself and Tina today about my journey.
And also, obviously, as Claire just said, Tina is here as always from Puzzle Media. Thanks so much for coming in again, Tina.
Thank you, Stuart. I've had a couple of weeks off, but I'm back and ready to go.
Claire, you've got a really interesting story in terms of how you've come from, well, essentially working at Google, and we want to understand kind of where your background is there, to then moving into Basic Tech, and that's quite an interesting transition to make. So I'm interested to hear about the story. So can you take us back to the good old days at Google and tell us, firstly, what you were kind of doing there?
Yes, of course. Thanks, Stuart. So at Google, I'm originally from South Africa, and so I worked for Electronic Arts, or EA Sports and EA Games, as you may know them by, in South Africa as their marketing manager. And although I had a marketing and PR background, and I had a giggle because I was listening to one of your previous podcasts, and I think Tina and you were talking about when you would still have a percentage of your revenue allotted to marketing spend. So yes, that's how far back that was. So in the early 2000s, I think. So yeah, that was good. So I think from then, sort of really got interested in the technology side of things, and we immigrated to Australia. And I had a baby at that stage who was 6 months old. So I took a little bit of a break and really discovered what I'd like to do. And I applied for a job with the Google Retail Operations team. They were looking to launch something called a Chromecast, which you may have heard of. So making your dumb TV a smart TV, and also sort of chatting about the Android operating system, and really educating stores on the Android operating system initially, and then also about Chromecast. So it was something that Google had never done. They'd never really had a retail presence before. Lots of people don't understand that any phone that's not an iPhone, really, before BlackBerry or after BlackBerry and all of that, is really got the Android operating system inside it, and that's what it's running. So it was our job, really, my team's job in Queensland initially, and all the other states had team leaders too. So I took on the role as the Queensland team leader, and we had to go and visit stores like Dick Smith when they were still around, and JB Hi-Fi, and eventually all the telcos came on board. But it was really just to educate store staff on the Android operating system, and we partnered up with companies like Samsung, and then they wanted to launch the Chromecast at the same time as well.
Because that was quite a while ago now when Android sort of first launched. That would have been a huge, going from zero knowledge, because I didn't even know what you just said about all the phones essentially running on Android. I didn't know that either.
No, I didn't know that. I didn't. I used to have, I think my first phone that did more than just a phone call was a BlackBerry, and they were, it was like this big, and you were trying to, send emails, and you had to kind of put it on its side to do it. It was, I wasn't aware of that either. So
still today, I mean, you get the odd Microsoft phone, but yeah, every other phone that's not an iPhone has got an Android operating system in it, and we've gone through all the iterations. There's Lollipop, KitKat, Marshmallow. There's different names that they give the Android operating systems, and they're usually based off sweet treats. So we always used to guess what's the next one coming.
And so that would have been a huge undertaking. What are you essentially going in to, well, like you said, to Dick Smith, the stores, and educating I guess, the sales guys on the floor about what exactly?
Yeah, so it was really just to give them a good understanding of how the whole Android system works, and the difference between an app store on an iPhone and the Play Store on the Google Play Store. And back then, you'd have things like Google Play Books and Google Play Movies. Things have changed a huge amount between then and now. But it was usually also, if Samsung had a launch of one of their Galaxy devices, we'd go and assist them in educating staff on the benefits of using an Android phone and how it's all integrated into, most people have got a Gmail address that use an Apple device. And, a lot of them, it was just a whole education piece on the benefits of using an Android device. And a lot of the sort of the Samsungs and the Oppos, some of the Oppos and a lot of the other kind of devices that are out there in terms of smartphones have what we call bloatware on top of them. And so a couple of years later, Google decided to launch their own pure Android experience phone. And there used to be a phone called the Nexus range that came out, and that was just Android, right? So that was for like the geeky people who didn't want all the bloatware, what we call bloatware on top of it. So I always was a big fan of those. And then, the Pixel came out, and it's like a really good middle ground between like a Samsung, you got your Pixel here, and then you'd have your iPhone, because a lot of the same features are available on both. You're getting the best of both worlds, I would personally say.
Yes. And how long were you doing that for, Claire?
Probably all in all about 5 years. Yeah, so yes, it was a big thing because, I mean, not just the Android operating system and Chromecast, because Google then launched their Pixel phones. And with that, shortly after that was their smart home devices. And so, Hey Google became a part of most people's homes. And we all had Google Assistant enabled speakers, smart displays, and you could link it to cameras and all those sorts of things. So it really just grew and grew and grew. So our job became a little bit more involved, I would say.
So was your role there, because it'll be interesting, I know what Stuart's probably going to ask you next, which is how you've gone, but your role there, was it to educate the teams on how they operate from a functionality perspective, or was it more from a how they were going to then sell and explain to their customers?
So Google are really good with putting together what they call decks, like, presentation. And so we would have a big conference, and at the conference, they'd usually sort of deliver what the new product was. We'd all get really excited to go to a conference because we knew something new was about to launch. Go to the conference, and there would usually be an initial deck or presentation set up that they would present to us. And in that, it would be all the technical specifications, as well as a version, I guess, to educate store staff, and then for them to actually pass that on to customers as well. And so what was really important was authentic examples. And so we were so lucky. We got a copy or a device of whatever was being released. Most of us would have, got the latest speaker or the latest smart display or the latest phone, whatever it was. So we got to take it home, really get to use it ourselves. And then when you went or we had our staff going into stores, they could really talk about the benefits and features, but really from a consumer point of view, with some authentic examples of, okay, so this is how I'm using it in my home. And this is how you could translate that conversation to a customer. So it was a whole education piece, coupled with, you have people who also want to have the technical specifications explained to them. And especially store staff, the guys that we were talking to were mostly in the IT sections, the guys that were selling computers, then later in the telco section, and also some of the white goods now and again, but not really. So we really need people to understand how they operated and fitted into the bigger picture as well.
And so you did that for 5 years. What year are we at then? When did the speakers and stuff come out? Where are we at in time?
So it was from probably up until about 20, just before COVID. And then I did a short stint just, as casual for them for a little while. But probably the year 2019, up until 2019. So
Did you then make a clean break from Google to what you're doing currently, or how did that?
No, there were some steps in between. So before COVID hit, it was weird because I was promoted to national virtual training team leader. And so our job was physically where we didn't have teams in store or teams that could go and see a retail store in each state. We would have a group of people in each state that were part of this virtual training team. And so we were doing virtual training, not on Zoom, using Google Meet, and it was Hangouts before then, where we would just basically chat to retail staff and train them like we would in a store situation, and have brand ambassadors in stores and all that. So I moved on to doing that for a short time as well. But then I think, yeah, I guess with COVID leading, probably just before COVID, it was the beginning of 2020. I remember I went back to South Africa and I was feeling pretty burnt out. And I had arranged, I think by that stage, I'd decided that I was going to make a move, and I'd actually left Google. And I got back, and a friend of mine who was then working with Amazon said to me, "Oh, would you be prepared to come and train all the Bunnings stores in Queensland on their Ring range of devices?" So that was really interesting as well. So I did that little stepping stone in between, and flew up to all sorts of places up in northern Queensland and all the way back down again. And we trained everybody on video doorbells and cameras. And so I'm so lucky I've got like a bit of everything in my home. So it's really nice to trial the tech out, which is
I was going to
good.
say, yeah, I love our Ring camera. It's great.
Yes. Yes, yeah. So I did that in between while I was trying to decide, oh, what am I going to do? And then COVID hit, and we're all stuck at home. Luckily in Queensland, not as badly as every other state. But I had a lot of my friends reaching out and saying, oh, can you help my dad, or can you help me? Like, I'm stuck. I don't actually even understand how to use this stupid phone or this laptop, and he needs a MyGov account, or I need this, or I need that. What would you recommend? So I ended up doing a lot of like just helping friends and their family members, with various pieces of tech, whatever it was that they needed, either for work or to stay in touch with loved ones. And I started thinking, there's got to be something around that senior citizens can access to increase their digital literacy. So I did a bit of Googling and saw the Be Connected program, which is an Australian government's program. And it is really aimed at anyone 65 plus, and it's all free. Like, anyone can go online and access it. But the whole thing is that they were looking for network partners. So either not-for-profit organizations, individuals, businesses, whatever you were, to actually apply to become what they call this network partner. And then it was your job to deliver free digital literacy classes to seniors in your area. And so I started off doing some work at Glenn Tozer's office when he was still in Madraba, before they moved to Firth Park, and just had classes around a boardroom table for seniors. And then it just grew and grew and grew. And we moved to the Rocket, so building just a boardroom that somebody gave us in the Rocket. They were really kind, on Platinum RTC, I think is the company. And we used their boardroom for about a year and a half. And I delivered these free lessons to seniors because I was used to training people, talking about tech. And I think because we'd really had the opportunity to, from a consumer point of view, not talk about the jargon, really dumb it down so that people was understanding this is why this is important, and this is why this can be a benefit for me to use this, whatever it was, right? So I really enjoyed that, and I did that. I ended up having about 500 seniors probably come through my portal as a Be Connected network partner.
I was just going to say, so that started in 2020. Do you think that had that been in conversations with the government prior to COVID hitting? Was that okay? So that sort of initiative was already in place, and so you were then delivering it, obviously, once restrictions were lifted. What was I'd be really interested in, what were the key things that people were fearful around when it came to using tech?
Well, the senior citizens, I would say it was more that they were scared of it. They were scared they were going to break something. They were like, I don't understand. Like, if I do this, what does that mean? And I'm scared. I'm just too scared to use it. And I just say to them, do whatever you can. It's like, if it means that you're going to just be watching YouTube videos and understanding how to use the interface, do that. If it means you're just going to be texting, just try that out. You can't break it. And they knew that they'd always have me on a Monday to go, oh, made a mistake. Please, can you fix this? I don't know what I've done. Or reset my Google account password or whatever it was, right? Apple ID. Yeah. So I think just the fearful factor of tech being forced upon them once COVID hit, and them having to, okay, I've got to go online and get a MyGov account so I can get a COVID vaccination certificate, which I could then add to an app called Trekking Queensland, which I then use to actually have a life and visit venues again and go to the RSL.
God, that was a pain
Yeah.
for the best of times. That was
Yes.
difficult to deal with, wasn't it?
I did so many of those.
It's
like
so hard to link
thousands,
it all
I
up.
think. Yeah.
Yeah, I bet.
And so you said that initiative wasn't born out of COVID. It was already kind of in play. Then COVID happened. And then I assume a lot of the things that people would want to do was around using Zoom and things like that, or not really?
Yes, some of it was around doing video calls. And of course, if they had Apple devices and their family had Apple devices, FaceTime was a really easy solution for them. I think people would just, and I'd have seniors coming to me and saying, I want to get on Zoom. I'd be like, why do you want to use Zoom? Because it's actually made for businesses and it's probably too complicated for what you want to do. You could just use FaceTime because you have this, right? So we had a couple of people saying, yeah, I'll give it a whirl. And we try to do some online classes using Zoom. We use Google Meet. I found a couple of free programs which we could use just to try different video call options. So whatever it was, we'd just give it a try. And I'd try and get them to really do as much as possible without being fearful on it. So it was really when I was doing the classes, I would make sure that it was led by them. So that, I'd see where the class would go. And at the end, I'd say, right, we should have a look at this next week. This really works well with the next week's topic, which can be this.
So was that the sort of the format is you come in and people would attend with a view to coming back week after week after week?
Yes. Oh, I had some diehards that were there from the beginning right up until the end. They were there every single week, and it was so lovely because it became a bit of a social outing for them. I
was going to actually ask, like, did it become a little bit of it was I think that's what we all craved during COVID, wasn't it? Just a bit of consistency in something, whatever that may have been at the time. So that's,
No, it definitely was. And I think for a lot of senior citizens, they may not have their family here. And even if they do, I know my grandkids are awful. Every time we want to have a video call with my parents in South Africa, they're like, oh, not this again, please, So for seniors coming to this class where they had other people who were also struggling with tech, and it was just they all got to know each other really well. And some of them hang out still outside of the classes. They take their dogs for walks. They realize they all sort of live in similar areas. And it was really lovely. We went and we had, Christmas lunches, and I'd make a big thing, whatever sort of holiday it was. So.
And so where has that moved to now? That's obviously during the thick of COVID. What's that evolved into nowadays?
So I've actually pushed pause on my Be Connected classes because I decided that this year I would do something different. So I've been helping out a homeless centre or charity down in Tweed. So I do that instead. But moving on from sort of doing the Be Connected classes, there were plenty of seniors who were sort of housebound or didn't have the ability to get out to my class on a Monday at whatever time it was. And so my husband said to me, and a couple of other people said, you really should look at turning this into a business. There's so many people who could use your services at home. And so I was thinking, oh, well, I'm not too sure how I would do that. I would need to sort of obviously get all the necessary checks in place. And someone said you should go through the aged care providers. And so I had a contact at Anglicare that I reached out to, and they're actually based here in Robina on the Gold Coast. And they were the first aged care provider who said, we'd love to take you on as a service provider. So senior citizens in their own home may get services from, things like cleaning. They could get a gardener, they get a social outing. And so within that sort of service provider space, we were able to come on as technology assistants. So going to their homes and actually assisting them in the comfort of their own homes. And I think that's really important because a lot of them would come to the class and they'd leave and they'd go home and something would be slightly different, or they weren't able to bring their desktop computer to the class. So so from Anglicare, we now have 13 other aged care providers that we provide services to, and it's going really well.
Claire, that's fantastic. That's fantastic. I remember speaking to you, I think it was pre-COVID, when you had just kind of started doing some bits and pieces, and I think you just become involved with the Gold Coast Council, the initiative. So hearing like where you've gone with that, that's incredible. Like, what an achievement. And to be working with so many different other providers now, and being able to benefit so many people. So on average, how many people are you kind of seeing each week or each month?
Each week I'd say, so it's actually just myself and Emily on the Gold Coast, and we do have Tim in Brisbane. Brisbane has been a little slower to sort of pick up, so I'd say the majority of our work comes from the Gold Coast. But on average, we're probably seeing, because we have 2 classes that we do as well, so on a Friday there's probably 10 people that we assist at a retirement community, and then we're probably seeing 3-4 clients a day each, if we can fit them in. Yeah, and then, it comes in waves though, so we'll be really busy, and then it'll be really quiet. I'm like, oh, what's changed? What's going on? You know how you do as a business owner, you sort of freak out and you're like, time to do some networking. Send out some more newsletters, so yeah.
Do your clients ever stump you? Do they ask you something? You're like, oh, I've never dealt with this before.
Actually, there are some seriously tech-savvy seniors out there, honestly, and with hugely really impressive backgrounds as well. And I think we sometimes forget that these people had lives and huge careers and were really, something, had their own businesses, whatever it was. And there are a couple that come to class on a Friday at a retirement community that sometimes ask some tricky questions. And not often, we've had 1 or 2 if we've done a home visit where there's been something where I've gone, actually, this is probably more we need to take this device apart, like a laptop, and probably fix the hard drive or remove it or whatever it is. And then I'll say, right, okay, so I'm not going to try and attempt this job. This is not my area of expertise. So I'm going to pass you on to a contact that I know that's really good at this specific thing. So I always believe, don't try and start fiddling with things like that. And you're like, I think I can do it.
Thank you. Unscrew this and
no. I've replaced the battery, but that's as much as I'd like to fiddle with people's devices.
And so, in terms of, I guess, marketing and how you are, getting that ongoing work coming in, what are you currently doing in your business?
So, with regards to the aged care providers, I have tried things like social media and a couple of other sort of, I guess, other methods that most companies would consider, to be their first sort of go-to. The aged care providers aren't really interested in those sorts of, maybe not even LinkedIn. I was trying to do some really good things on LinkedIn. I think that's more like probably networking, getting your name out there. But in terms of them, they really just want to know that you're providing a really good service and you've got all your professional indemnity and public liability insurances, all the checks, right? So then they're happy, the clients are happy, you're providing a good service, you're good to go. So in terms of networking, I attend a seniors roundtable each month, which is probably has around 70 aged care providers and specialists in the area that attend this. And it's set up by Lockridge Financial Services, and they do an amazing job. And that is where I've picked up all of the other aged care providers mostly. 1 or 2 may have been through a client, but the others have all been through actually meeting people through this seniors roundtable, which is hugely beneficial. And in terms of other marketing, I do send out a newsletter at least once a month. And if I do have anything else that I may consider like an asset where like for instance, the Office of Fair Trading released where to report a scam and where to get help from a scam
Oh yeah.
right before right before the end of financial year, which I actually attached as a PDF document and sent out to everybody in the newsletter as well. So
Yeah.
and that is about it. So for now, I do the odd
Okay.
social media post just so that you have some kind of presence.
I can imagine it would be challenging to do marketing to a demographic that may not even be on social media or doing Google searches or anything like that. I think that would probably be quite challenging.
That's actually a really good point. I think I probably just forgot to mention that you know, a lot of my clients, I would say, oh, what would you think if we had like an online class? And they're like, no, we want to see it. We want to do face to face. Like you can't. And that's the thing with the Be Connected program. It's great. People can access it online, but they need like network partners or people like myself to hands on, right, this is where you need to go now in order to get to that next step.
Yeah, because I do and I remember we spoke, didn't we, about doing some. I know at one point you were looking at taking some of your training it online and going down that online program route, and then you came back and said, well, actually, what my clients are getting the most out of is the in person, and that's great that you're able to still deliver that, and I guess it's difficult when you're teaching tech to then expect people to go and navigate an online course when
It
most
is.
people struggle with
Struggling
it.
with that to begin with. Yeah.
I know.
Depending on what platform they're using, but
And definitely, social media is not, like Stuart is saying, the social media part, a lot of them are actually quite anti it. They're like, oh no, I don't do Facebook. Instagram, what is that? A couple of the more sort of, I don't know, some of them do, but I would say like 80% of them are quite opposed to it.
I suppose if they're coming to you for that support, to learn some of the basics, it's not going to be, that's not their go-to. That's not, your audience is not the tech savvy, seniors. It's the non-tech savvy.
But even the
yes.
tech savvy ones, they're quite private, and
Yeah.
they're sort of that generation where they don't want everyone to know what they're doing.
Yeah.
They say that
It's
my
funny.
life
I
is
see
private,
a bit
I'm
of
not
a
going to be
mix.
sharing it.
Yeah, I think. I definitely see a mix of the people that I know that are, sort of in their 70s, that are using social media, and I guess, if I kind of did the average, then most of them definitely are not. But those that are quite happy sharing lots of bits and pieces. So it's like one way or the other. It's two kind of different extremes. So yeah, interesting.
Obviously, you get some. I believe that you're connected in with NDIS, the whole NDIS system at this point. Is that right?
Yes, we have a small amount of work that we get through Ozcare actually. So they have an NDIS, I guess, section or program that they run, and through the OT, so the occupational therapy or the allied health team, they will sometimes refer onto us. And that's been really interesting as well because there's so much assistive technology and even the basics, like, if you look at your phone, the things that you can do in terms of assistive technology just on a mainstream device like an iPad or a normal Android phone that people aren't aware of. And when you show them that, it's really, it's quite good to be able to communicate that. But yeah, that's been interesting, and it's been good to be able to investigate that side too. And there's so much technology that's been brought out to make people's lives easier, no matter what disability you're living with.
I was just going to say, I guess what are your plans with the business? Like, where do you see this cut? Was that what you were
Exactly
going to ask?
what I was about to say.
Find us doing this all the time. So just, I guess where do you see this kind of moving to? What would be your ideal scenario for your business in the next couple of years?
Oh, I've always, and I know it's probably pie in the sky stuff, but I really would like to have some kind of membership where seniors are part of, like a club, like a computer club, where they can access face to face, they can access an online class if they wanted to. We can give them tips and tricks. We can offer some kind of phone support, because I definitely think there is a need. And in terms of marketing, I think affluent children, and I say children, it's more people our age, that have parents that they're tired of helping, may benefit from saying, you know what, that sounds amazing. I would love to just, pay that each month and know that my parents' technology is taken care of. So
Absolutely.
that is something I've been thinking about.
That's so funny because I have vivid memories of being asked when I was, in high school or uni or whatever, mum or dad needs help with something on the computer. And it was just so maddening all the time being asked for all that stuff. So I think there's probably a market for that for sure.
There definitely is. But even, I think if you ever offer that service in the UK, then please let me know, because I will definitely send my mum along, who's in her 70s and still it struggles a lot, even though I have sat there very patiently recently and on other trips over to the UK, and my brother has as well. But yeah, she's just not interested. Having said that, though, there is that ongoing, education, right? Because I know that my daughter taught me how to use TikTok. I wasn't sure. I didn't know how to do any of not that I really know that much now, but the basics she was showing me. And I think it's just that, we kind of go, oh, well, they're younger and they're using these different apps and this different style of technology. How does that work? If you wanted to ask about gaming, I'd put you in touch with my twin 12-year-old boys. They're all over it. So I think there is always that, but I definitely think there's a need for putting something like that together, Claire, on a larger scale and facilitating, train the trainer type.
Yeah. Yeah, it sounds good. And everyone you talk to always says, oh my gosh, if you could just help my parents, that would be amazing.
So, any other sort of, any tips to, I guess, share with the listeners who are either seniors and if they found the podcast, like, well done. But if you are not tech savvy, I'm guessing if you're listening and you're tech savvy, then this may not be for you. But any tips for those that are trying to support seniors or even just people that are not very tech savvy, not necessarily seniors?
Yes. I guess my number one tip, and this is what families should listen to as well, is if your father or mum or elderly parent has an iPad, so an Apple device, please don't buy them an Android phone. And then throw in a Microsoft computer, because when we get there, it's dealing with several different ways to save passwords and different operating systems. So let's stick to one thing if we can.
It's such a simple piece of advice that
because once you start trying to
hours.
Huge amounts, because you start explaining, okay, your iCloud storage is full, but on your Microsoft device you have OneDrive, and then on your Android operating phone you actually have a Google account, but I've got a Gmail and it's on my Microsoft computer and I use that on my iPad, and I'm like, woo! Where do I start?
Yeah.
It makes you, even just Rhiannon has an iPhone, but everything else in our house is basically Android. And it's just like, oh God, everything would be so much easier if you just didn't have that stupid iPhone.
See, I'm the other way. We've all got, everyone in my house, we're all Apple devices, everything. The kids have got Apple things for school because, that's what they do. And however, our TV is not an Apple TV, and that does cause some issues when we're trying to link things up. So
definitely, if you're all in the same ecosystem, life will get a lot easier, won't it?
Yes, please.
How often do you find people are all in the one system there, Claire? I would imagine it's probably pretty rare.
Very rare, very rare. I have one hardcore Apple user at a retirement community that I see each Friday, and he is hilarious. He goes, I will take Apple to my grave. And that is it.
Hey, I'm with him.
Good for you, Peter. Yes, it's
I'll
like
be there,
everything.
clutching onto my iPhone, taking one last selfie.
Well, everyone, that brings us to the end of another episode of Launchpad. And we're going to be back again next week with more news and information from the world of tech and marketing and kind of everything else in between. So make sure you follow along on your favorite podcast listening platform, whatever that might be. And we'll see you next time on Launchpad.